All right, guys, welcome to the Peak Performance 40 podcast. I have with me longtime friend Kyle Schuant, who is equally cynical and bitter as I am about the fitness industry. Like me, he's a long-time trainer. And what we're going to do today is actually a little bit different than normal. So we've come up with sort of half a dozen topics, and we're going to debate them basically. So as we bring up each topic, we're going to have it like one side arguing for one point and one side arguing the counterpoint. And then we're actually going to vote on it after which one we'd actually choose and explain why. So it's going to be quite different than normal. I'm actually looking forward to being the voice of condescension and of arguing something that I would never normally agree to. So let's start with...
It's fun being one-sided and like having no...
Yeah,
none of this it depends nonsense, but no, this is the way it is.
Yes.
And if you do it, you're wrong. And just because you're annoyed with me, I'm going to start kicking puppies.
Yeah. So it's very black and white today. We're going to start with fat loss. Now, our two options, the two sides of the coin, we're going for diet and training. Which side do you want to argue for?
I'll argue for training. I mean, look at the place, you know.
Okay. So let's start with you. Tell me why training is more important for fat loss.
Well, they have to get strong before they can get off the couch. And if they get into the habit of training, they're more likely to get into the habit of having good food. I have yet to see anyone who has a really good diet who does not train regularly. On the other hand, there's a lot of people who train regularly who have a terrible diet. But all the ones that have a good diet do train regularly. There's just something about they get their shit together to show up 2 or 3 times a week and lift weights. It makes them get their shit together in the rest of their lives.
So you're saying it's almost like the starter package of the entire deal. If you can't train, there's no way you're going to eat right.
Yes. And because also what happens is, so they do just a basic barbell progression here. And when you're squatting the empty bar, you can live on cigarettes and KFC. You can't do that when you're squatting 100 kgs. It just won't work. It just makes you either get yourself together in the rest of your life, or you go down under the bar one day and never come up, and we take you outside and bury you. It just doesn't work.
Just slip into the hole in the ground with a lot of KFC oil oozing out of you.
Yeah, that's it.
And is there a style of training you think that benefits fat loss the most?
Really hard training. But look, honestly, just the novice progression using barbells, because it kind of edges up. And at first, they're having their cigarettes and KFC, and they're fine. They might cough up a lung between sets or something, but they'll live. They've still got the other lung, but it gets harder and harder as the weight gets up, and so they start questioning: am I really doing the right thing here? Maybe instead of KFC, I should have a chicken salad. Maybe like staying up all the hours God sends, looking at my mobile phone late at night, arguing with people about the President of the United States, isn't the best use of my life. Or clicking like on somebody's Instagram post as they do a twerk. Maybe that's not the best use of my life, and I should just, put those screens aside and read a book, or, God forbid, but even talk to my spouse while I'm in bed next to them instead of just looking at my phone. And that kind of makes them get themselves together, and everything else falls into place. And even if it doesn't, they're still fat, but at least they're strong.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that, to be honest. But I think for me, I've never seen anyone get really lean without focus. Hold on. I got to be honest. I dated a girl who could get really lean with eating whatever she wanted. Sadly, I mean, she was on like the Doritos and Slurpee diet. I mean, I'm not kidding. At summertime, she would eat like nothing for breakfast and crack open a big bag of Doritos and then want to go get, that's a slushie for people that live outside of Australia, but like a iced sweet thing, like a Slurpee from 7-Eleven, And that was pretty much what she'd eat during summer. And she had a six-pack year-round, had horrible eating habits, but just blessed in terms of how she looked.
Well, it's like that guy that we all knew in the army, the cigarette BFA guy.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that could just
Yeah.
knock back a couple of durries, go and smash the
everybody.
fitness test, and afterwards he'd be and then knock another one back. Oh, that's better.
Yeah. But I think the problem with outliers is where we've all probably met a couple. Just because we know them doesn't mean we are them. And I've never seen anyone reliably get in good shape without paying huge attention to their diet. I definitely agree. Like you said, it's much harder. Like the gym, let's be honest, like a beginner, it's 2 or 3 workouts a week that they've only got to concentrate for an hour at a time. It's only a very short thing that they've got.
Plus, we stand there and shout at them, which tends to make them comply.
It's totally a coaching technique.
Yeah, I mean, if we were there with them to eat dinner,
Yes.
No, there needs to be some vegetables on that plate, children.
And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, it's one thing when you come and train. And this, even when I had my gym, I can't come to your house and slap the food out of your hand, though. Like, that's a very expensive training package to have the 24/7 accountability, right? Right. But
slap the face.
Yeah. Just no, put that down. But when you
a dog. No, get out of there, dog.
But when you've got someone who can come in 3 hours a week, that's really different to getting them to concentrate on their diet 168 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger difference in terms of the amount of discipline and motivation they need for it. I would guess probably about 1/3. Yeah, it's probably equal thirds. Probably 1/3 of the people I train have got themselves together with their diet pretty well, and about 1/3 are okay, and 1/3 are dismal. And the 1/3 who are dismal are the ones who really, really struggle lifting the weights. The diet's the secret sauce, right? Like, I'm sure you've had a conversation where someone comes along and goes, I want that plan that you're giving, point to person in the corner who's really just coming to train the same number of times, but watching their diet. And you're like, no, they're just actually following the diet guidelines again. There's no secret plan. They're like, no, but what's the secret you're giving them? No, there really isn't any. They're actually just doing everything I told them to do versus you, who's only doing 3 hours of what I told you to do. They're actually doing 168 hours of what I told you.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've got one guy who for a while he was 15 minutes late to every session.
Oh, he's only working out twice a week.
No, he was coming 3 times a week, but
he's only coming twice a week, just in minutes now, because he's lost like half of a session straight away.
No, I'm talking about a current guy, so they've got more time. But anyway, so he's 15 minutes late to every session, and I told him, mate, if you want to have a smoke before the session, you have to come early and get the smoke out that way. And he's like, what? But like, how do you know? Like, well, you come in smelling of cigarette smoke, plus the others wander in through the front and they tell me they see you sitting in your car. As well, when someone was feeling unwell in the gym at one point, he offered them some mints, and he had those really, really strong mints.
I like this.
Smokers do that. They get the really, really strong mints because they think it's concealing it from their spouse or whatever. So he comes early now and he does that, but his amount of smoking has dropped off a lot. I tried to incentivize him. I told him, if you go through a whole 3-month term without smoking, I will give you the next term free. Because I figure that like just stopping smoking is going to be of more benefit to him than anything we do here.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the other topics. We'll get to that when we get to it.
But anyway, I mean, that's to my mind, the smoking, it's just another kind of consumption. Like when you're talking about food, you're talking about everything that you put in your mouth. And so that includes drink and, alcohol and tobacco and wacky weed or whatever else you happen to have. So that's all part of it as well. Yeah. So, in the training versus diet thing, I think the diet, that can really mess it up. That can really mess up the training. Yeah. And so they try to get, if they train properly, they'll kind of get forced in the direction of eating well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just too miserable.
in person, you'd find, and even online now, people will be quite like reasonably able to put out good effort. Like they're in decent numbers. They maybe can hammer the rower, and some of that indoor cardio stuff like an air dyne and a rower. Being bigger is actually beneficial. You can go harder on those things. Those are big guy cardio options, but there'll come a point where they go, well, hang on, I'm doing all this work. You can't even tell I work out. No one's ever said, have you been working out? And I think eventually, they'll get to a point where they get frustrated with that. And that's when they turn around and go, no, I need that secret program that you gave so-and-so. Like what's the secret program? Secret program is to stop eating so much shit.
Eat some veggies,
Yeah. You replace the KFC with some broccoli. All right. So, because I just wrote them down in the order we originally talked about this. Conveniently, we're now up to longevity, which is it's tying in with the smoking thing. So, it's exercise versus lifestyle. Do you want to pick lifestyle, seeing as how you've already started talking about it?
Yeah, I should say exercise because that's how I make my living, teaching people exercise. But honestly, the stats do seem to be that it's lifestyle. I mean, people who have no friends, it seems to be as deadly as smoking.
Yeah.
To them.
Well, I mean, actually, we may as well talk about that NFL stuff you looked at between brain injury and obesity, and which was actually more damaging.
Yeah. That was quite surprising. So there was some online discussion of like BMI, and of course everyone goes, "Oh, body mass index." Oh, but that doesn't account for how jacked I am. Yeah, well, it's like, well, Arnold Schwarzenegger was BMI 30 when he was on stage. Are you Arnold Schwarzenegger? Let's have a look at you and see. Generally not. So no, you're just fat, mate. You might be strong underneath that fat, but you're just fat. So, and somebody said, okay, but having more lean mass can help you last a long time. And my instinct, I don't have the data for it, but my instinct is that it's a stress on your heart to move around 100 kilograms, whether it be 80 kilograms of lean mass and 20 kilograms of fat, or 60 kilograms of lean mass and 40 kilograms of fat. The 80 kilogram lean mass guy probably has a stronger heart, but in the end it gets worn out. I mean, how often, if you do stock car racing, how often do they have to replace the engine? There's your heart transplant. I mean, the high performance is a stressful performance. So if you're big, it's your heart's going to have to work really hard to maintain that. That's my instinct. So I went and looked, and somebody had said NFL guys. So I went and looked it up, and they die at an average of 59 years old.
Yeah, at least 10 years younger than the rest of the population.
And the interesting thing was that surprised me, because I thought, like, all the knocks on the head, you hear about CTE and concussions and all the rest over the years. I've had a number of concussions myself, so it's a topic close to home for me. And what was interesting was that the cardiovascular disease was by far the biggest killer. And there was one study which compared NFL players with baseball players. The NFL guys had about 28% more neurodegenerative diseases than did the baseball players.
So that's clearly the impact of concussions.
Yeah, that'd be the impact of concussions. Ignoring the fact that obesity can contribute to neurodegenerative diseases as well. But let's be generous and attribute that all to concussions. But still, they were more than 10 times likely to die of cardiovascular disease. And they were much more likely to die of cardiovascular disease than the baseball players who lived to like 67 or something. And that's just because they're bigger guys.
Yeah.
And as well, you can think they spent 3 years on average playing NFL, but they spent at least 30 years being fat.
Yeah.
So when you look at and when you compare the numbers, so they spent 10 times as much time being fat as they did getting knocked in the head, but it was more than 10 times as many instances of cardiovascular disease than neurodegenerative disease. So in other words, 1 year of being obese is worse than 1 year of having your head smacked in.
Yeah.
That's which really surprised me.
Absolutely. Terrible statistic. Like when we were talking about that initially, I just remember looking and going, I mean, that doesn't make that's not the thing that you would think it is. You would think it was the other way around. You would think the trauma from like just that, extremely physical nature of the sport was going to be the biggest problem. And actually, as it turns out, it's totally lifestyle that's the biggest problem.
Now, that doesn't speak to quality of life, because it's quite possible to have a neurodegenerative disease but die of cardiovascular disease. My own mother had dementia, but she died of a stroke. So, but I mean, she still had dementia first. So it removed, she lost her quality of life before she lost her life. So it's quite possible that the last 10 years that they're having is impacted in some way by multiple concussions and that. But in the end, what kills them is being big.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think, I just think lifestyle, and then there's the friendship thing. So I've got on my website a little article, 13 steps or 13 weeks and 6 steps or something to health, where I tell people to 3 cups of veggies a day, 3 serves of protein a day, blah, 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 all the Australian Dietary Guidelines stuff, and do 30 to 60 minutes of walking a day. But I also tell them sleep, pick a time 9 hours before you want to wake up in the morning. Your screens go away, turned off, out of your bedroom preferably, but certainly turned off. And then you have an hour before you actually intend to go to sleep. You go to bed, do something else. As I said, read a book, talk to your spouse, whatever. Because poor sleep seems to kill a lot of people as well. But the first thing...
doubles your risk of a lot of cardiovascular, obesity, diabetes risks as well. So under 6 hours is incredibly high risk compared to...
Yeah. And people try to make up for it by sleeping like 12 hours on the weekend and that. And it just doesn't seem to work.
I actually found and I can't remember who it was, but I was actually looking at sleep debt, and because my wife's a firefighter, so it's something that we deal with a lot in our house. And you can't make up for 1 or 2 poor nights of sleep with another 1 or 2 nights. Like, even if you make up the hours in the next couple of days, those couple of nights of poor sleep, it can actually take 2 weeks to make that up. So the debt is actually much bigger than what people think it is. They think they can recover it just in the same number of hours over a given time frame. It's weeks to recover.
Yeah, well, I think it's similar to exercise or food. I mean, if you're having 3 cups of veggies a day, you should have 21 cups of veggies a week. Does that mean that you could just eat Maccas 6 days a week and then on day 7 eat 21 cups of veggies? Or, okay, I was supposed to do a half-hour walk every day, so I'm just going to sit on the couch for 6 days, and then on day 7, I'm going to walk for 3.5 hours.
I'll do 70,000 steps on day 7.
70,000 steps. Mind you, if I've had 21 cups of veggies, I'll probably do 21,000 steps just running to the loo.
Toilet. Yeah. I think, look, I was going to talk about exercise. I think we've established that exercise really isn't the biggest component in longevity, other than it's clearly part of it, right? Like, just being consistent with decent diet and all these other good lifestyle habits. Exercise should be part of it, but it's pretty clear that exercise is not the biggest component of longevity.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the first thing I put on my list of things to do is talk to a friend or family member every day. Because, I mean, our Anglosphere countries, Australia, New Zealand, the US, Canada, and so on, we're pretty socially atomized. We have small families. We have a lot of single people.
The way you and I both do business, so we work from home on our own. That thing where most people, like, a lot of their social circle is actually people they work with. We don't have that at all. People work from home, so it's quite possible for a lot of people to pass the entire day without hearing another person's voice that's reacting to them. I mean, they watch TV and stuff, but it's not the same as hearing somebody else. That seems to be the stats as well. So there's something like 12% of Americans report having not a single close friend. There was a point during COVID where people were saying, I'm stressed out because I'm missing people. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm actually I'm legitimately wired to not need other people. And I recognize I'm an outlier in that sense. So I can get by with not having contact. But there was still a point during COVID, because Melbourne was locked down so much, where I was like, hang on, I haven't spoken to anyone other than my wife for 4 months. Like,
Oh, God.
that's not great for it. Like, so as much as I can deal with not having other people around, I still recognize that actually this is probably heading in the wrong direction.
Well, there's that rule of threes of 3 minutes without air. You can survive 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. But there's another one that's not talked about much. They say 3 months without company.
Yeah, right.
That's like there's a reason that solitary confinement has been banned in most Western countries.
Well, that's interesting because if you look at Alone, which we both quite enjoy, like everyone aims at 100 days, right? Like that's a magic number. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, they all aim at 100 days. But you would have seen that article I wrote about the guys on Alone.
Withdrawn.
Yeah. Well, the people on Alone. So for those who don't know, it's a telly show where they take people out and dump them alone in the wilderness, and the one who survives the longest without pulling out or being pulled out wins the stack of cash. And it's really tough because they have no communication with the others. So you could be on day 60 and completely emaciated and feeling miserable, and you don't know if there's one other guy still who's just about to pike out, or there's 9 other people still going. It's like that horrible thing they used to do in the army where they take us for a run and not tell us how far it was going to be. Yeah. It turns out that 15 Ks where you know it's going to be 15 Ks is easier than 5 Ks where you don't.
Or they tell you
really tough.
It's 15K and you circle back to wherever you started from, and they just keep running.
Yeah. It's real. So humans can put up with all sorts of horrible suffering if they know when it's going to end. I mean, if we really wanted to torture our clients, we'd say, get under the bar and do some reps. I'll tell you when to stop.
Yeah, right.
They'd cry.
Talking about barbells, let's move on to resistance training, because I think we've covered longevity and lifestyle. I mean, that's I don't think there's any more we can add to that. So resistance training. Do you want to talk barbells and dumbbells, or you want to talk odd implements? I feel like you're definitely the barbell guy, and I'm definitely
let's play to our strengths this time. I'll say barbells. Yeah. You go first. You go first with the odd implements.
Let's see. As I'm getting older, the barbell is definitely harder to use. That's not because of lack of want. I've just got more injuries. So it may be that, squatting as an example, I've got a torn left labrum. I tore my right hamstring off the bone. I've got some weird thing going on with my left foot at the moment, which I feel like I actually stress fractured my foot walking funny after surgery recently.
Oh, God.
It's so painful, ridiculous to walk on. Even if I try to squeeze my foot, it's painful. So there's actually something legitimate there. If I was going to squat right now, so my right leg is better than my left, but I'd probably squat like this because I put all my weight on the right and not on the left. So is barbell squatting really my friend right now? And the answer is probably not. I mean, not even judging, I've got a hole in my thoracic spine where they drilled a hole into my spine. So should I be putting load on my spine right now? Again, the answer is probably not. And even if I didn't have that hole in my spine, most guys, and let's be honest, about 80% of the people are walking around with an unconfirmed disc bulge anyway. They're just asymptomatic and don't know it. Should they be loading up their old, brittle spine with heavy loads on the back? The answer is probably not. When we look at a lift like overhead press, look how stiff I am because I got no T-spine extension. It can be difficult for people to actually have the flexibility to get their hands overhead. But if I'm using 2 kettlebells, I can kind of wiggle myself around. I can make my body fit the lift a lot better. Whereas I think with a barbell, you have to fit the lift. Whereas kettlebells, sandbags, all these things, they can be a really great way for older bodies to train. If I look at a kettlebell front squat, well, let's call it a sandbag front squat, even though it's not really the same, right? It's more like a Zercher squat, way more comfortable on the body. I mean, just front squat.
I've never heard sandbag front squats called comfortable before.
Well, compared to a barbell front squat, how many people come into your gym who've even got the wrist flexibility to do a front squat? Probably none, right? I mean, that position is not terribly comfortable for a lot of people to begin with. So for me, I look at the kettlebell stuff, particularly single kettlebell, the sandbag, because it's softer. They're not maybe terribly soft depending on how you pack them, but way more forgiving on the body, give you a lot more options in terms of how you can move. From a home training perspective, I think the kettlebell really wins out quite a lot. I mean, you can do just about any exercise in the world with a kettlebell, and they take up very little space. Like when I compare it to, like particularly like a bodybuilding kind of setup, I need a leg press and a leg extension machine, and I need leg curls, and I need all this expensive, large equipment that's going to take up a lot of space. Or I can just go buy a couple of pairs of kettlebells and kind of shove them over in the corner, use them as a doorstop when I'm not using them. I feel like they're a great addition as people get older. And certainly, I mean, my cycle was, mostly started with sport-specific strength training, then got into some bodybuilding, but then very much got more into the functional side of stuff for martial arts, really got into the kettlebell thing, got a bit burnt out, went away from it, and, like kind of more blended barbell dumbbell stuff, but I'm coming back towards more kettlebell stuff as I get older. I really feel like they're a fantastic addition for people as they get older. So school me on why barbells and dumbbells.
Well, I think everything you said is correct, because when you're, for example, a primary school teacher, you are going to have some children in the class who need remedial help.
Motor morons.
Yeah, there are some kids who just, the teachers, oh God, they need some extra help. They're struggling a bit. But in the case of the school teacher, their aspiration is that they shouldn't be remedial forever.
Yeah.
They should go up a level.
Oh.
So I think you're absolutely right that some people are not ready to whack a barbell on their back. I have a very simple category. It's very binary. A category ready, right? If you are between 18.5 BMI and 35 BMI, if you have no recent surgery.
35, do you mean 35 or 25?
35, right? So I'm talking about whether or not they're ready to put a barbell on them.
Okay.
So BMI 18.5 to 35. If you have no recent surgery and you have no other bizarre chronic health conditions or whatever, we're going to stick you under the bar.
Yep.
Now, what you do under the bar, you're not going to get this like 60-year-old BMI 30 lady and get her to do a barbell snatch on day one. That would be stupid. Okay. But she can start off by doing
CrossFit stupid?
Yes. CrossFit is abominably stupid. CrossFit is the kicking puppies of the fitness world. It's it's funny, but it's cruel. And you shouldn't do it. So, that old lady, she is going to be able to put an 8-kilogram bar on her back and squat to a box. And you increase the load up to 30 kilograms or something. And then you drop the load back to that 8-kilogram bar, and then you lower the box. And so on. And you go on through that process. And over a process of weeks or months, you get her to do a below parallel squat with at least an 8-kilogram barbell on her back. And then you continue loading it. One good thing about barbells compared to most dumbbells are not sold as adjustable. They're sold in sets.
Yeah.
And kettlebells, of course, are generally not adjustable. You can microload them. They're very titratable. You can just go drip, drip, drip. We've got like the fractional plates, 0.25. Okay. If you really need to, you can go from that 8-kilogram squat or press
To
8.25.
Oh,
you don't have to put one on either side.
Yeah.
250 grams off is not going to make them fall over.
Yeah.
250 grams. So you can do it, and that's all. I had an 84-year-old man come in, and he could press the 8-kilogram barbell over his head, and he could add half a kilo a week to it. And he got up to about 14 or something before he stopped, because that's the problem with training the oldies, that the problem that brought them to your gym will sometimes take them away from your gym as well.
Yeah.
Because it can be a bit late.
That kettlebells and sandbags and stuff are the remedial version of training.
Yes.
I agree. I mean, I had, and I didn't have the BMI idea, but I had customers I would never have let squat or press overhead with a bar.
Yeah, because if they're under BMI 18.5 or over BMI 35, they either have a medical problem now or they're going to have one in the near future. And so I want them to go to a doctor, and the low body weight, and both of them to be seeing a dietitian to get that skinny person up to a normal body weight, to get that class 2 obesity person at least under BMI 35.
Yeah.
30, 30 to 35, they can do it. And I want them to see a dietitian. I want them to have supplements or whatever. There's probably some psychological issues going on if they're that skinny or that big. So I want them to get that dealt with and get into that 18.5 to 35 range. Then, okay, you're probably not too messed up. You're probably not too crazy, and we can actually train you.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just, I can see they're not doing that well enough that I'm going to lock them in place with a barbell, because that's the big thing, right? So I can adjust my hands very easily. You know, I can have one hand like this and one hand like this if maybe this shoulder is a little bit tighter, and I can actually still press. I can't do that on a barbell. So if I'm seeing stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, that guy doesn't need the bar. But that means that I've got some other customers that when I introduce the barbell to, they're actually going to get much better results. And that was the big thing actually that led to me going, yo, I'm done with all this Pavel kettlebell stuff, because I was reintroducing barbells at a time in the RKC hardstyle thing when no one else was. And my customer results were going like that. I mean, I had people going to the Olympics at that time, and there was no one else there who was. They're like, no, you must train only with kettlebells. No. When I've got these advanced people, the people who actually should be loaded more, this is the only way to load them more. And so I totally agree. I think the bar is the end point. I think kettlebells are really accessible for people though.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that idea that we've discussed before of the 4 levels of performance. Dave Tate said there's only really 4 levels of performance: shit, suck, good, and great. Now, he didn't express it this way, but I think of it as like quartiles of the world record, 0 to 25% of the world record. Like, so for an 83 kilogram guy, the world record deadlift is, I don't know, 400 kilos or something. If you are deadlifting 40 kilograms, you're doing 10% of the world record.
But you've got a problem.
This is at 10% of the world record. This is, well, like compare with a 5K run, the world record's, what is it, 12 and a half minutes or something. 10 times that. So it's like deadlifting 40 kilograms for an 83 kilogram guy is like that guy walking 5Ks in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. You're doing something. You've started. That's good. If you've just come out of surgery or something, well done. If you have cystic fibrosis, you're awesome.
Well,
but if you're like healthy, what the hell are you doing? Add some weight to the bar. Walk quicker.
Spot on. I mean, like to be in that bottom quarter, and it just use me. I'm limited to lifting 4 kilo per arm right now.
Yeah.
A maximum of 8 kilo. And if I'm, and let's call it a deadlift, but let's be honest, it's a squat at that point, because like the weights are so light, you just hold them down by your side. But yeah, I've got a problem. I had spine surgery a few weeks ago, and I'm clearly not in a position where I should be loading, but I shouldn't be trying to stay here. I should be trying to get into that, at least that second quarter, right?
Yeah, where you merely suck instead of being shit. Because like he's talking about in relation to competition performance, but I think we can look at it in terms of health as well. Because if you're in the 0 to 25% of the world record range, again, like a 400 kilogram deadlift for a guy, or like I think it's 240 or something for a 63 kilogram woman. So basically you could think of like, actually I think the world record for guys is actually 320. So you can think of it as like multiples of body weight. If you're not deadlifting at least your body weight and walking 5Ks in an hour, you've either got a medical problem now, or you're going to get one in the future.
And I think people need to understand as well, you can be in one of the higher categories for something and in a lower category for something else. Like everyone thinks advancement in one area equals advancement in all, like being high level in everything.
Yeah.
Look at go back to those obesity and death rates in the NFL. You got elite athletes who are incredibly strong and powerful, but who had massive health problems thanks to being obese for a long period of time.
Yeah. Well, you know the story, but the time when I was strongest, I deadlifted 222 and a half for a double. So that was in the good category, between the 50 and the 75% bands. But I was 92 and a half kilograms, and my joints were sore all the time, and I couldn't do a chin up. There's no way I could maybe walk 5Ks in an hour and a half or something. Yeah. And I was snoring like a donkey. It was just awful. It was awful. So I was in the good category in terms of strength, but then I was in the shit category in terms of endurance and mobility. So being merely suckful in 2 things is probably better for your health.
Well, I can tell you, like, so many basic things just because of everything I've had going on. So, like, I can't touch my toes. Well, I haven't been able to touch my toes for years thanks to the hamstring tear anyway. But like putting shoes on, really difficult. Standing on one leg's difficult. And I've clearly had a health problem, and now it's clearing up. Like it is getting better day by day. But I mean, there's no way in the world I should be trying to go out and perform incredibly at this point. I've got, if you think about all the levels that go, even just between like, I don't know, being like in photo shoot shot kind of shape, which technically all I'd have to do is diet for, right? Like, but I can't actually even train hard enough to make that diet work. I would have to restrict myself even harder than normal to get in that kind of shape. Like I'm just not healthy enough to do any of these things. So definitely getting into that, like out of that first 25% has to be.
Yeah. So I had a lifter once who said, before barbell training, I knew what it was to be not sick, but I didn't know what it was to be well.
Yeah.
And I think that's sick is the shit level, not sick is suck, and then being well is the good level. The thing is that even if your performance sucks, it's in the 25 to 50% range. But it's in like if you've got 25 to 50% in strength, if you and in endurance and in mobility, and you add on a good diet to that, I think your health is going to be good. The diet and the lifestyle things is going to pull it up.
And let's be honest, I mean, the bell curve says most people are average, right? So most people should be able to get to somewhere in that 40 to 60% range relatively easily. Like that's not going to take a huge amount of, that's not like a giving up the rest of your life kind of thing to get there.
Yeah, well, like the 25% thing, I mean, that's like you're deadlifting your body weight and covering, deadlifting your body weight or covering 5Ks in half an hour.
Yeah.
And that's not, sorry, not in half an hour. For 25%, we're talking like in an hour, 60 minutes. So, if you can't walk 5Ks in 50 or 60 minutes and deadlift your body weight, then you either have a problem now or you're going to develop one in future, I think. And people have said, don't we adjust by age? And I think, well, as you age, shouldn't you aim to be as close as you were as possible to what you were when you were younger?
I can tell you what my mum's stats are. She's 83. She can definitely deadlift more than 50 kilo, which is what she weighs.
Yeah.
Even now when she's not training for anything other than just to be healthy, she weighs 51 kilo. 50 would be her warm-ups. And she can walk 8K in an hour with a pack on. So, and that's not a heavy pack, obviously, but that's, like maybe a rainproof coat or like a warmer jacket, some water, maybe a camera or something. So like maybe 5 kilo of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's her years of activity. I mean, we talked about 30 years of being obese was more deadly than 3 years of being smacked in the head. But I mean, just think 30 years of being active.
Yeah,
that's a lot of momentum.
Certainly for things like walking. I mean, when you look at going back to the longevity stuff, I mean, there are studies on walking speed and both mental health in terms of Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as overall longevity. So if you can maintain a walking habit and walking pace, it's a good indicator you're going to stick around healthy for some time.
Yeah. And that's why I said the first thing I tell people is talk to a friend or family member every day, because that ties into building habits as well, because like you'll go for a walk with your friend, you'll have that good food with a friend or family member or whatever, and you're much more likely to stick with it. It's that old saying that if you want to walk, go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I see that I have on every Tuesday or Thursday, I have a long walk with a close friend. And when she's with me, we regularly do probably 16 to 20 Ks.
Yeah.
And when she can't make it, I do about 8 to 12 Ks on my own.
Yeah.
So when I'm bored, I'm going home now.
And it probably feels way harder.
Yeah.
So let's move on to resistance training number 2. Do you want to argue for it should be all about strength or it should be about hypertrophy, bro?
Well, all right, I'll argue the stupid one, hypertrophy.
Well, but you've actually just started a hypertrophy phase. I think that's perfect.
Yeah. So
you go first.
Well, I've done this. So if we're talking about training for a lifetime, I've long felt like if you could plan out a whole lifetime of training, childhood is just play. like I've seen, there's this little girl like Naomi Kutin, and her she got into powerlifting, and she was like squatting 100 kilograms when she was 9 years old or something like that. And I saw a documentary about it, and her dad's a lifter and that, and in the documentary, her dad's going, "Oh, yeah, that's really her thing. It was her idea. She really loves doing this." And while he's saying that, he's making a Facebook page for her as a sports person. So there's some real Tiger Dad stuff going on there. And I mean, I don't think it's harmful for a child to do barbell training any more than it's harmful for them to play tennis. I think the harmful part is like being pushed for that by that parent, because okay, if you want a Mozart or a Venus Williams, you've got to start them at 4 years old and have them do 3 or 4 hours a day.
You're supposed to be arguing for hypertrophy, not telling me how to create Venus Williams.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, you've got to do that. But for every Venus Williams or Mozart you end up with 10,000 bitter, twisted kids who hate the sport and their parents. So I think it's not worth it. So I think kids need to play.
Associate activity with winning, and if you're not winning, it's not worth it.
Yeah. So I think kids just need to play. Adolescents need to do a variety of sports. I think in your 20s, probably to about 35, you need to do weightlifting, because that's as explosive as you're ever going to be, and it's going to build some strength. About 35 to 50, you just need to do powerlifting, just barbell stuff, because you need to build as much strength and lean mass as you possibly can for older age, and do it in hypertrophy ranges. Past 50, though, I think you do, if you've been doing all that your whole life, you are going to get worn out and you need more bodybuilding style. And so that's where I am now. I'm 53 years old. So I've just got myself a personal trainer. And so we're growing out with dumbbells and stacks of reps and all the rest. And I'm sore for days afterwards. And Garmin tells me training readiness 2%. Oh, wow. And so I go into the gym and I do the 1 hour session with him, and then I jump on the treadmill afterwards, because Garmin doesn't know what the hell it's talking about. So I go in anyway. I might feel differently about 6 weeks from now, but we'll see. This is just the first week.
Yeah.
So which is I'm doing more hypertrophy, because the thing is, you need that reserve. So as you know, a few years ago, I had a couple of seizures for the first time in my life, probably to do with all those concussions, plus all the stress of all the lockdown nonsense and that. And on the Thursday night, I train Sunday, Thursday, normally train Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. And on the Thursday night, I squatted 120 kilograms for work sets. I was 50 years old. And then on Sunday morning, I woke up with a very worried wife and a couple of paramedics in the bedroom going, "What are you guys doing here?" "Oh, we've been here 20 minutes. And I had a seizure and I was totally wiped out. They'd given me a drug, Midazolam, and it makes you zonked out. Anyway, so I went off to hospital, got checked, and they didn't know what the hell had gone on. Anyway, I came into the gym on Tuesday, and this is the whole body DOMS, the worst muscle soreness of my life, because all the muscles are, seized up. And I was walking around like an old man, stagger, shuffle. It's like, damn it, I'm going to do something. So I came into the gym and I tried to put the bar on my back, and there was just no way that I could physically get my hands back there. Even tolerating screaming agony, it was just physically impossible. They were too seized up still. So I got the good old safety squat bar, the remedial one, and I put that on my shoulders, and then I went, "Oh, hang on, what if I fall over?" So I put a little box underneath, and I squatted down to the box, 3 sets of 5, and then I left the bar in the rack, and I went back inside, called it a day. Obviously, I lost a lot of strength. I haven't lifted as much since. I lost a lot of strength. So I think there are definitely times in your life when you need hypertrophy, where maybe you can't handle as heavy a load, and you just need to bro out, get the pump, because we know what the pump is better than, and put the blood into your muscles, grow some muscles. So you actually have something to lose. That when you get sick or you go on holiday or you just can't be asked with the gym for a while, you actually have enough that you can lose it. It's muscular superannuation. You want that backup for later on, because I'm not going to squat 120 kilograms when I'm 80 years old. I know some guys do, but I'm not going to be one of them. But I still want the muscle. Still want things to pump up.
I'm actually going to disagree. So while I somewhat agree, you're clearly wrong. I mean, but I'm going to make it fancy, right? So powerlifting, let's really say it's below 5 reps, right? So maximum effort's below 5 reps.
More than 5 reps is cardio, bro.
That's right. So for strength training, it actually doesn't matter what form it takes, provided the exercise is so hard that I can only manage less than 5 reps, right? So I can do stuff that's joint friendly, like a bottoms up kettlebell press, for instance, right? So this is now, okay, it's not a barbell bench press or anything, but this is not a high rep activity anyway. This is a very.
But is a bottoms up kettlebell press really a strength exercise or just a circus trick?
Oh no, it's 100%. It's a whole body exercise. So it's not about.
Yeah, but so are circus tricks.
Well, not according to the ex gymnasts that go in the circus. They think it's basically for elite gymnastics. Aside from the grip and the pressing stuff, to actually keep your body tight enough that the bell's just not going to flop everywhere, it is a whole body strength exercise, just like a barbell maximum lift is. And it always makes me mad when I see people like doing, I did this bottoms up like carry because Stu McGill said so, and they've got this like paperweight thing in their hand, and the guy's like 120 kilo. Like, no, mate.
Yep.
Not for
But
you.
have you done a get up with a glass of water?
No, I'm too strong for that. What a waste of time. But so I could do that. I could do. I could set myself up in half kneeling, right, like a kneeling lunge position, and make my stance so narrow, right, so not like hip width, but so narrow that my core stability is challenged so much that even a normal, so using kettlebells, I might press a 32 under normal circumstances for a set of 5. I might only be able to handle a 24 from there. But now I'm developing core stability. I'm developing hip stability. I'm doing all the same upper body strength stuff I am, and I'm limited to less than 5 reps because
your core stability is starting to give me Bosu ball vibes. I'm getting a bit worried.
I don't have Bosu. I actually bought an AirX pad recently for part of my rehab, but that would just add another element to it. But I can put myself in these challenging positions and train in a way, because the muscles don't recognize load, they only recognize tension, right? And how difficult the movement is for them. And when you look at the studies on hypertrophy, there's 2 things. One is tension, right? Like you have to develop a certain amount of tension. And I think it's either above 80 or 85% of 1RM tension. And this is why powerlifters, you said you up to 50 powerlift because it'll help you gain the most muscle possible. But if I'm doing that, then the body doesn't know what the movement is, only how tense the muscle was. And then the other one's fatigue, right? So if I want hypertrophy, I have to do a number of sets and I have to do it on incomplete rest so that I actually force hypertrophy. But from a strength perspective, I don't actually need to use loads that are potentially joint damaging for me to get the same strength benefit. And
yeah, but if you've got hypertrophy, then you're going to have strength anyway. I mean, there's a reason there's weight categories in sports.
Sure.
Bigger muscles are stronger muscles.
I agree. And look, for people who don't understand, if you think of muscle fibers like this, right, and a muscle is thousands and thousands of let's call them tubes, right? Because that's what you're looking at. You're looking at this long tube that contracts. If I make each muscle fiber bigger, when it contracts, it's called the contractile matrix, it can contract more because it's got more cross-sectional area. So you're absolutely right. That's why the bigger guys lift more. But if you're someone like me and you've been lifting weights since you were 13 years old, what's your chance of stacking on substantial muscle at 53 anyway? It's probably not huge.
Well, there's certain people who would tell you that even if you have a 40-inch waist, you should still try a gallon of milk a day. And
yeah, well, yeah.
An article recently came out saying that talking about the minimum body weight for strength, and the 5 foot tall guys were meant to be, I shit you not, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
I think they're failing your BMI barometer. So,
yes.
I don't disagree about hypertrophy. I think there is definitely a place for it, but I don't think it's necessary to ditch strength training. I think perhaps like the barbell big 3 or the weightlifting couple of lifts, I think maybe they definitely.
Yeah, look, in all seriousness, so after people's novice progression, and they just come in for 3 months and they, do half a dozen lifts and add weight to the bar gradually until they can't. I don't get them to go to failure because that's too miserable. Like that thing of just keep adding weight to the bar and then you fail twice in a row, so now you deload 10% and try to squeeze out another few kgs. I don't. It's just too miserable. So I don't do that to people. I take them to probably about 80 to 90% of where they physiologically could get in 3 months.
Well, so that's enough to be stimulating muscle anyway.
Yeah. No, like, so if somebody physiologically could get 100 kilogram squat in 3 months, I'm taking them to 80 or 90 kilograms. I'm not pushing them as far as physically possible because I talked before about like wanting them to establish the habit of exercise. I want it to be absurdly easy the first month so that they can show up regularly, because you have to set aside time not only for the gym but to get there and change and all the rest. So I want them to be able to find the place for the gym in life, and I want them to have mental energy to do so. Whereas if you smash them when they first come in, they've got nothing left. So I start them absurdly easy and then take them up to like 80 or 90% of where they could get in 3 months. After that, they almost always go into a heavy, light, medium program, and I usually have the medium day being stacks of reps.
Yeah.
If they're doing sets of 5 on the heavy day and sets of 3 or whatever on the light day, the medium day, they're doing like 3 sets of 10 or whatever. And so they're getting some hypertrophy in there.
Very early on in my career, so first gym I worked at, I still remember this woman, and this was back in the days where, like you didn't have to sell your own sessions. The gym did it for you. So the gym handed me this woman. She was a couple of years older than me, like let's say early 30s, and mid-level manager for, I don't know, some big company. And she said to me, like, you're not my first trainer. I've got plenty of experience in the gym. I want you to smash me. And I just stopped doing the commando thing. And I'm like, challenge accepted. That first session, I hit her with the fury of 1,000 suns. And that was at 6 a.m. And I remember, like, I trained my 7 a.m. person. I trained my 8 a.m. person. And as I'm saying goodbye to the 8 a.m. person at 9 a.m., she's walking out of the gym. I was like, oh wow, you were really getting ready a long time. And sorry, I didn't say it. I just remember thinking it. And she didn't turn up for a session on Wednesday, and she cancelled on Friday. And I was like, I better give her a call. And called her, and she said, oh no, I sat on the floor in the shower for about an hour trying not to throw up all over myself. And then I've been so sore that I haven't even been able to brush my hair for the whole week. And what it really meant was that she was so sore she didn't turn up to train for 2 weeks. And from a professional point of view, think of all the income I lost. I lost 6 sessions worth of money, right? Like straight away, very early on in my career, I'm like, never smash someone on a first session. Don't that money.
I learned that really quickly too, because we used to have these just half-hour sessions that we sold, and so I was like, how the hell do I cram everything they need to do in half an hour? So I'd give them like 20 minutes of a circuit, and then 5 minutes of like also of cardio, and then 5 minutes of stretching. And so the cardio was good old, the Japanese name, Tabata. Wow. So I whack them on the bike, 20 seconds flat out, 10 seconds easy, 20 seconds, 8 times. And there were tears.
Yeah.
There were tears. Most people just couldn't do it. But the people who physically could do it literally cried. I made people cry.
Have you read the full study?
I made them keep going.
Have you read the full study?
Yeah.
So, like, one of the things that people miss about that is that the participants in that particular study all said they would never repeat that training method.
And they were professional cyclists.
Yeah. Even the professional cyclist says it was so demanding that they would never do it again. So
I don't care if it's going to win me the Tour de France. I will never do this again.
Yeah. So, I mean, that says everything. Let's move on to diet. And I said to you before, so we can pick, if you want to argue for like a normal kind of, let's call it just a general fitness kind of diet, or a brand name diet like keto or something like that.
I'll argue for the normal diet, because you were telling me something about keto before.
Yeah.
So tell us about this keto. Why are you doing this to yourself?
Right. So there are times where a brand name diet might actually be really suitable for you. So fasting, for instance, you might want to use that to lower blood sugar, maybe to lose weight quickly because you've got some surgery or something coming up. In my case, I've had surgery. My protein requirements are sky high right now, like about 50% more than what they normally would be. So under normal circumstances, I would usually tell people to aim for about 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. After surgery, for tissue repair, you want about 1.5 grams. So that puts me up to about 270 to 290 grams of protein per day. And at the same time, right, I'm trying to not blow up like a balloon. So, and I'm not doing much activity. Carbohydrate is really the activity food. I'm not doing a huge amount of activity. Like my training at the moment is 30 to 40 minutes of, let's be honest, very easy training. So, because it's either rehab or lightly pedaling on a bike, I don't need a tremendous amount of carbohydrate. So it's allowing me to shift most of my macros into protein. I still get tons of vegetables because that's not really a lot of calories, even to eat a lot of vegetables for the day. Make sure I get the tissue healing I need while staying at a reasonable amount of calories so I don't blow up like a balloon during this period of time. So there are times to use this diet, but they're specialized. I don't feel like it's a year-round diet. And I've looked at research, and probably the worst way you could ever choose to be on a diet would be a keto intermittent fasting diet that you combine together. That's a death sentence for anyone trying to put on muscle, just FYI. And there's plenty of studies to show low calorie and low carbohydrate will eventually cause hypothyroidism, which means that basically your body's just going to get colder and slower, and all you're going to notice is ill effects along with you're not gaining any muscle at all. So, you know, there are, as a year-round training idea, terrible, but for very specific times, not a bad idea. And maybe one of those specific times, though, is I'm going on holidays and I want to look good, or it's my wedding coming up and I want to look good, I want to lose fat in a hurry. There are times to do that. Would I do it all the time, though? Got to be honest, no. Because, I mean, a normal day for me has got so much activity in it. If I don't eat carbohydrate, I'm going to fall flat on my face under normal circumstances. While I'm in this weird situation right now where I've got very high protein demands and actually not much activity, keto actually fits really well for me right now.
Makes sense. But for me, remember I said there's two categories of people when they walk in my door. It's category ready to train and category medical. So I'm not dealing with the category medical. You'll go with the BMI 40 guy.
Are you saying my 8 kilo deadlift is too little to count as healthy in your gym?
That's right. Exactly so. It's because of recent surgery. It's not so much the load that you can handle, but the recent surgery.
Because you mentioned Australian dietary guidelines before. What's like the standard diet to you?
Okay, so it's the Australian Dietary Guidelines, which are overall quite reasonable, but they're really horribly presented over several web pages, and it's really muddled and confused. So, because it's a government publication, so of course it's a mess. So I simplify it to 3 cups of veggies. Okay, so their cup is 150 grams, so it'd be like 2 cups of salad or whatever. 3 cups of veggies a day, 3 pieces of fruit a day. Don't be an idiot and have 3 watermelons or have 3 grapes. Okay, 3 pieces of fruit a day.
Yeah.
3 cups of cooked whole grains a day. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, your donut does not count as grains, right? 3 serves of meat, fish, or beans a day, where a serve's like a palm-sized piece of meat or fish, and so if you're a bigger guy, you've got a bigger palm. Okay, or a cup of beans, it's like about 150 grams. And then 3 serves of dairy a day, which is the little bit confusing one because it's a cup of milk or 200 mils of yogurt or 40 grams of cheese.
Yeah.
And the Australian Dietary Guidelines say the grain, mostly whole grain, the meat, mostly lean meat, and the dairy, mostly low fat. And that's part of why I say they're a bit poorly presented and ill thought out, because they want you to have the dairy to give you the calcium and the vitamin D, but the calcium and the vitamin D live in the fatty part of the dairy. So if you take that out, you get bugger all vitamin D. So it makes it pointless. It's just carbs.
Well, and I mean, skim milk, everyone thinking they're going to get the calcium. If you don't have the fat, you can't absorb the calcium in the milk. It's completely
and so it's a little bit tricky because if you follow the official Australian Dietary Guidelines, you end up blowing the saturated fat recommendation. So Australian Heart Association, whatever they call themselves, recommend not more than 10% of your calories from saturated fat. So that's actually pretty small because, like, if you have a 2,000 calorie diet, that's 200 calories from saturated fat. That's 22 grams of saturated fat. And you've got 5 grams in a teaspoon of butter, and several grams in a cup of milk, and so on. So it's pretty easy to blow through your saturated fat, particularly if you're eating red meat as well. So, but the doctors and nutritionists that I've spoken to have said, like, if you're eating all that other stuff, you're getting high fiber, and high fiber seems to counteract the saturated fat effect in people's long-term diet. So I get people to do it step by step, because if you just give them, go, eat all this, it's too much. It does their head in.
Yeah. I got contacted by a guy who I know overseas. So he's like a PhD sports psych guy, and he's in a mentorship group that I'm part of. In fact, he's one of the leaders of the group, and he's doing a talk for a bunch of ex-special forces guys who've found their way into working at one particular company. And like everyone who's gone from an active job to an inactive job, they're stacking on the weight, they're unhealthy, they're unhappy. And he was looking for a framework for, like something he could give them that was easy to understand. And he found the 8743 stuff that the 28-day challenge is based on. And he's made a 10-to-1 format. So 10 of this, 9 of this, 8 hours sleep, using 3 or 4 of the things that I had, but another 6. And he said, like, what do you think? I'm like, I think you're giving him too much for exactly that reason. Like, you're going to overwhelm them and they're not going to know where to start. And in the early editions of the 28-day challenge, I wanted people to do tons of stretching, because it was 8-7-4-3-2, and the 2 stood for do double the mobility work that you do the workouts. And no one would do it. It was too many things. And I took it out and compliance was better. So totally agree that you can overwhelm people with too much stuff straight away.
Yeah. So I just look at it as like the gym stuff. If you have a guy come in, if I have a guy come in and he's used to doing international bench press and curl day on Monday nights in his Globo gym, I'm going to get you to how much do you bench? 100 kilograms. I'm going to get you to close grip bench press. That's going to totally change your life, man. That's not going to do shit for him. But if I get him to squat or get him to do a pull-up, that's going to make a difference to how he feels and how he performs in that. So the basic principle is you find what they're not doing and you get them to do it. And in terms of diet, for almost everyone, that's veggies. So the Australian Bureau of Statistics is
total calories. They're eating too much. That's 70% of them are overweight or obese. That is an awesome spot to finish. Hey, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today, man. I know we organised this spur of the moment. I was actually getting a foot and calf massage when we were going back and forth about this. So, like awesome that we could get together today. And you've taken care of me getting to talk to a friend today. So there you go. We've handed our longevity requirement for the day. But thanks very much. It's been